Thank you for joining us today. Please introduce yourself and your company as well. So please start. Yeah.
My name is Sebastian. I'm a co-founder of Evoke Electric Motorcycles. We are an electrical and mobility OEM startup over here, and yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Xia Zhijing, and I'm now a partner of Vertex China, based in Beijing. And Vertex is an early stage VC platform headquartered in Singapore, but with presence in different regions like China, Israel, the US, and Southeast Asia. And in China, we have been doing this since 2009. And I think in the past several years, we have been focused on AI and so-called transportation or mobility sectors. And we have made some investments and even get some very decent return from some of the deals. And I'm so happy to be here today to share with you guys some of the developments in the technology and the investment areas.
Hello everyone, my name is Tuo Shi. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of the Vision Technologies Corporation Limited. So we are a company based in Beijing and launched in 2 years ago, November of 2017. And the vision is focusing on developing and delivering the mass productionable and solid-state LiDAR, providing high accuracy, high performance, and automotive grade reliability with a reasonable cost that everyone can deploy. So currently we are in a very good state, and we have been 3 rounds of investments. And right now our products have been technology approved by many of our customers, and we are seeking to expand our mass production facility in Jiangsu by end of this year, and starting to mass production by next year. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, from here. So how do you see China's revolution in transport and mobility industry in past 5 years?
In my view, I think that the transportation and the mobility progress in China in the past 5 years has been the most incredible and the most impressive thing in China in the last 5 years. And a lot of things has been, especially the industrial economics has been improved and accelerated by the transportation development. And especially, for example, like the high-speed railways and like the electric vehicles that's been giving a lot of driven technology to the market.
So when we talk about the innovations in the transportation and mobility, I think there are 2 things. One is the autonomous driving or smart driving, and the other one is the sharing ride-hailing like Didi or Uber or Mobike in China. And for the first thing, the autonomous driving, I think people are still developing the technology and to improve the safety of the autonomous systems. And we are it's going to take a little bit longer to implement, to commercialize the autonomous driving systems in China or even in the US. But we are already seeing some of the startups in China that are making a lot of money by providing the ADAS system or the DMS kind of system as a solution to the OEMs. And I think personally I'm very optimistic about the autonomous driving, but we have to do that step by step. And for the other area, the ride-hailing, the car, taxi hailing, etc. I think in the past 5 years, we have seen a lot of innovation of development in China and all over the world. And I think in different, it's very interesting that in different regions there are different kind of innovations. For example, in China, the mobile or OFO have become very successful in the past several years. But it is not the case in the US or in the Europe. So I think China has its own very special situation, and we have our own problems to solve. I still remember because Vertex invested in mobile in 2016 as a lead investor in the B round, and I'm going to tell a story about that investment. I still remember that back in 2015, when our team had a gathering in the US in San Francisco, we were doing team building in the city, and we found that there are bikes, sharing bikes. That's city, I guess that's city bike near our hotel. So we went out and we use our credit card to rent the bikes, and we ride the bike all the way across the Golden Gate Bridge and to the Sausalito. And we were so tired that we wanted to return the bike to somewhere. So we tried to find some stations in the Sausalito, but we could not find anywhere to return the bike. So luckily we found there a ferry boat, and we pushed the bikes to the ferry boat and get back to the downtown. It's very we saw that it's very useful. I mean, we have the bike, we can ride the bike all over the city and to do some interesting things, but we cannot return the bike very convenient. So we also thought about the problems here in China, and especially in the big cities like Beijing or Shanghai. So the last mile transportation had been a very serious problem for us. So we thought about that. Maybe we can do that kind of bike sharing in China, and to improve the process. I mean, you don't have to use the credit card. You don't have to return the bikes to very few stations. So after we returned back to Beijing, we started to look for those kind of startups in China. We met with Mobike, OFO, and several other startups. And finally, we decided to invest in Mobike, and it's kind of very successful investment. And within about 2 years, we made a decent return on that investment. So, but some people wanted to copy that kind of model to other countries without any success. But in the US, we will see we are seeing some other kind of sharing, scooter sharing business in the US. I think for different kind of countries, we have to use the technology to solve the different problems. So we have to be very local, very dedicated to the local demand. So that's one thing we learned from the investment in Mobike. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. Being an outsider over here, coming from abroad, I have to say the transportation revolution has been huge. I came to China in 2005 for the first time, and when I arrived in China, it was a still very traditional country. I mean, the rates on cars and stuff like this. And I've seen, as my partners over here mentioned, there's huge expansions involve last mile transportation, as well as the, cross-country transportation, high-speed railway, which changed this country It changed this country for good, and it will keep moving on faster. Evoque is not the last mile transportation, it's a motorcycle. And when we started, actually, we noticed huge development in scooters, last mile, as well as the car industry, because there was a huge demand from all the startups and young companies popping up, so everybody invested and put the money in that sector. What we found is that very few companies even were considering going in the voltage segment between 100 and 300 volts, where actual motorcycles operate in terms of their power performance. And as a company, we found that the revolution in this segment was actually very nostalgic in many ways. Motorcycle is one of the passions for everybody to ride. It's something that everybody always wanted to ride, but for many reasons, complexity, the time they needed to learn to ride, because some people discovered that it is easier and faster to learn riding a vehicle, or just turn on autopilot and just let the vehicle ride for you. But I guarantee that everybody in this room, even everyone who supports autopilot, has watched and probably even liked the pictures of guys on the bikes, moving around the mountains, riding around. And that's actually the next stage from when you're going from a bicycle, you want to move into a motorcycle. You want to go a little bit faster, not doing crazy stuff, of course, but you want to be able to commute. And when Evoque was born, we noticed that there was nothing of that. Neither the controllers, neither the BMS segments, neither the batteries. And even though everybody is focusing so desperately on develop the next battery cell, the battery chemistry, very few companies begin to understand is what is a battery. And even this confusion that people say is we discovered a new motor. And you're hearing that all the time. Motors have been discovered by Nikola Tesla in 1800 already. That's not a new technology. The new technology is the battery. Battery is the combustion chamber of the vehicle. And without knowing how to cool it, how to keep it warm, how to operate it constantly in all the conditions, that in itself is a revolution. And that's a thing where Evoque is focusing on. There's maybe 2 or 3 other companies in China actually focusing on that too. And we're seeing huge let's say, growth in terms of understanding of this concept, and that's where actually industry is growing. We don't want to swap these things, we want to have a vehicle which you can operate all over the place. And for me, the biggest and the most successful revolution over here is to see how quickly China has adopted charging stations. They're everywhere. They're still growing. It is still a revolution in its own that is happening at this very moment. They're being built daily by tens of thousands across China and the world. And I would say that in itself will revolutionize and will continue to revolutionize the world around us.
Yeah, sure. Charge station is very important role in the infrastructure of the ecosystem. Okay, we're going to talk about autonomous driving now, and I'd like to give my question to Mr. Shi. Yeah, so how AI algorithm and AI chips has accelerated the realization of autonomous driving?
For the AI chips and algorithms, and so in years ago, how AI has been developing so fast for the last 5 years, it's the computing power. So the computing power comes from the operations of the transistors and everything else. So in terms of this, you have to have sufficient power consumption, sufficient flops of and the computation actions every bit second. So in this way, the AI chips has been moving like iterating double or even triple, or even like tens of times every 1 year or 2 years. So that has been dramatically increased the computing power of this, the capability for the deep learning, for the machine learning things. And the second thing is that the decreasing of the computing energy for every single operation. So that has been made this possible for the edge computing. So what we are seeing is that with development and with new innovations in the AI chips and in the algorithms, it's not make things more complicated. It makes those things even more simplified and make this more energy cost effective, and the architecture is more simplified. So everything has been done to make all those AI chips and algorithms suitable for the mass production and for the edge computing in every single mobile unit, like autonomous vehicles, like mobile phones, like cameras everywhere. So with this, and we are living in a world of AI. With it helps us to have a lot of huge amount of data to help us increase our mobility, and helps increase our working efficiency and lifestyle and everything else. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Xiang.
Yeah. I agree with Shito that we definitely need more powerful chipsets in your cars. One thing is that you just need those kind of chipsets to process the huge amount of data generated by all kinds of sensors, the LiDAR, the camera, the radar, etc., all kinds of sensors. So it's a huge amount of data. So you need powerful chipsets to process in your car, not in the cloud. That's the second reason, because the latency is very important to do is key to the autonomous driving. I mean, if you are going to do the computing in the cloud, it maybe takes maybe hundreds of milliseconds to process the data and to get back to your car. And I guess that's bad for the controlling. So I believe that we have to have a embedded system in your car to process all that kind of data and to make that decision instantly in your car. So that's why I agree that we need much more powerful chipsets. And I also think that in the future, maybe the so-called V2X infrastructure is kind of very important to do the autonomous driving. I mean, you can get feedback, get information from your roadside sensors, either the traffic lights or the roadside cameras or any kind of information, just feed to your systems in the car. And by doing that, you can make a very fast and very accurate decision to control your car. So that's what I think about the autonomous driving in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Korok.
Autonomous driving on the bike. I don't see it for a while. I don't see it for a while. I do agree over here with one thing. Operating a vehicle and latencies in data transfer is a huge thing. EV in general, whether it's 2-wheel, 4-wheel, 3, or 18, is a laptop on 2 wheels. If you begin to understand that stuff, then you begin to understand that you can have some software, some elements of your vehicle operated in the cloud systems, in the infrastructure. But the majority of the performance and operating has to happen in the hardware. Vehicles in general, in the past at least, they've been pretty much like a Windows 95 still over there, inside under the hood. And both hardware-wise and software-wise. I mean, you can see a nice Alienware computer where chips and everything is designed for performance. However, in the car segments, in automotive segments, they're not designed to take on the environment. Let me give you guys an example. For example, when we were building our bike and we were doing our first ECU for a vehicle, because what we did in the Evoque was we wanted to have a future vehicle and we wanted to take what car is offering in terms of navigation and all of the internal computers and put it inside the bike. It's a massive computer that you have to squeeze into a little space, and we discovered that nobody actually designed such a small little thing, the very niche market on this thing. And as such, those things, the hardware-wise, the chipsets, they were never designed to operate in the conditions what we put them in. Give you another example. When you're riding a vehicle, when you're riding a bike, for let's say it's 18 degrees outside, while the air is moving around you, you're dropping by another 8 to 10 degrees, and then suddenly you're increasing that temperature when you're standing in the traffic. So temperature changes, wet conditions, humidity, everything is changing. The entire ECU system has to be built to actually be able to handle this thing. And I personally believe that real autonomous driving will pick up when the hardware will catch up to that condition, so they can handle all that data, all those sensors inputs. They can handle that in all different environments without delays, without compromise.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of hardware, I think the choice of LiDAR and camera can become interesting. And what's your opinion, Mr. Shi?
Yeah, there are controversies on whether LiDAR is a necessary sensor in the final autonomous vehicle solutions, and there has been two different solutions right now. That due to different campaigns. One is Waymo's campaign, and the other is Tesla's. So I see that both of them are right, and they make their business decisions based on their business modes, based on what they are selling and what they are selling in the future. So on the Tesla side, and they are selling a level 2 autonomous vehicle or the ADAS vehicle that can help improve your convenience and improve your efficiency to go from somewhere to otherwhere. But it doesn't take any responsibility. It doesn't take any duty. So all the responsibility still are the driver itself. So in this way, Tesla doesn't have to make this system to be 100% or even 99% of secure. It doesn't have to be as safety as Waymo's side, Waymo's vehicles. So in this way, the LiDAR, the sensor system cost is the very most thing they care about, and they are making this very the right decision right now. And another opinion on my side with Tesla is that they are selling this autopilot module at a price of $7,000. This is a very high and a very expensive suit. And in this way, I think they have the budget for the future upgrade of LiDAR sensors, maybe in like 3 years or even 4 years of time, when the LiDAR unit price comes down to a few hundreds of dollars. So that's something that they can be capable of paying for in the future. And even though they already sell the whole sensor unit for $7,000, they can upgrade all the vehicles they have sold in the past 5 years. So that's something for that. And on the Waymo side, or for example like Pony and Baidu, they have to be 100% sure that their system is very safety, provide the most safety and the most incredible convenience for the passengers. They are not drivers; they are passengers. And take one example for Uber. And Uber has launched some kind of trial of their autonomous driving system in Phoenix, I think. And only one accident, they killed this project and hold on everything they are working on. So this is a very huge drawback and a very huge rollback for their R&D progress. And so this is based on different positions, different business modes. They have different business decisions. So on the OEM side, they have to be 100% sure when the system comes to above level 3 or level 3 plus, when the OEMs takes the responsibility. So LiDAR sensor is the final solution, and every vehicle will have a LiDAR sensor or even like multiple of LiDARs. And finally, everyone here will live in a world of LiDAR.
Thanks. Mr. Xia.
Yeah, I agree that we have to have a capable hardware platform before we have a sound and reliable autonomous driving systems. And I'm not sure that the existing configuration of hardware is good enough for us to do that. I think probably it's not. So we see many kinds of startups are actually doing a lot of job to improve the hardware, and I think it could take a longer time for us to see the commercialization of autonomous driving. As Shito said, the Waymo of Google has been doing the testing trial for many years, and it's still very it's premature, and I think it will take maybe 5 years or even longer for us to see the commercialization of autonomous driving. And I know that maybe 2 years ago, people are very optimistic about the commercialization pace of the autonomous driving. But in recent years, I think many of them have been very cautious about that. And but I mean the technologies are continuously improving, and it's only a matter of time that we can see the autonomous driving in our daily life. I'm pretty sure about that. But in the future, I don't know which kind of company or startups or big companies will make a lot of money from that kind of ecosystem. I mean, maybe Google, maybe those big OEMs, but I have some doubt that the startups can be a big player in this area. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but I think the startups maybe better focus on the technology side, maybe as a technology provider, as an OEM, as a tier 1 or even tier 2, tier 3 supplier to the OEMs. But for the startups to build up this kind of ecosystem like a robotaxi, I think it's very hard for them to do that. You just don't have those kind of resource, money, and those kind of connections, government support, etc. to do that. So yeah, we'll see.
I mean, on autonomous driving, guys, and LiDAR itself technology, I can't really speculate and say which one is the best. In motorcycles, we use very basic radar technology over them, and that is just for insurance data collections. That's just to protect the riders on their own, to know what happened if anything happened, to see where the things happen, where they are. My office is actually based in Yichuan, and every day when I'm riding to Yichuan in the morning, there is a couple of startups over there who are doing the autonomous driving using different sensors. Can't really say which ones are those and where they're located. However, I think the autonomous driving is, for being a motorcycle rider specifically, is really this kind of scary part, because right now the way I see them being programmed often are very much yes/no decisions. This is the traffic conditions, these are the rules, these are the regulations, this is how the things are happening. What they're missing is what if. What if this biker accelerates a lot faster than I think he does? As a bike, first of all, I can get from 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, which means by the time the traffic lights goes green, if somebody's trying to pull a U-turn because he thinks I'm on the other side of the road, I'm already by the traffic lights next to him. And I've seen this a few times happen, and I had once a close call with the autonomous company, and they actually called me up. Later on, we stopped together, and they asked me some questions about these things, like how did the motorcycle riders perform? In China, you don't have them. You don't have as many motorcycle riders on the road, on the main roads, as in the Western countries. And in Western countries, we ride a lot faster and a lot bigger vehicles, and how I'm accelerating is even slow compared to some of the other vehicles. And we done 1 or 2 tests, and the guys were very happy that I provided them that. What if the motorcycle goes faster? Nowadays, every time I come to work and they see my light already standing on the other side, they just stand and waiting for me to pass. It's nice, but those are the questions which autonomous drivers, autonomous cars themselves, they're still missing. What if? There's a human factor which is one of the hardest things to understand in any kind of data-driven technology, and that's going to take a while still to develop.
Thank you. Since Mr. Xia mentioned the commercialization plan of autonomous driving, do you think which scenario, trucking and robotaxi would be the first to break out?
What's the first one?
Trucking, logistics. Yes.
Yeah, actually I'm not sure about that. People used to talk about the autonomous driving for trucks, thinking that it's a very good, very major scenario for autonomous driving. But I don't think that's the case in China. I think the trucks in China face very different conditions, the road conditions in China, not only on the highways but also in the city road, on the city roads. So I don't think that it would be the first scenario for autonomous driving. And for the robotaxi, I think it's probably a better choice if you constrain the robotaxi within a specific area, like in the city of Beijing. I think it's probably more feasible to do that. But anyway, it still takes a long time for the robotaxi to take off. I think it needs all kinds of entities to do that together. For example, the government support, the push from the industries, and also the innovations from the startups. I think we will see that in the future, maybe in 5 years or so.
Thanks. Mr. Xu, please.
Regarding the trucking in the highway and robotaxi, I think there are some other scenarios that's going to commercialize even faster. For example, like in certain areas of level 4 for delivery and for the road cleaning, and for the trucks in mine areas, and for the trucks in the harbors and ports. And in those scenarios, I think they are even much faster. Maybe in the next few years, that's going to ramp up into thousands and or even tens of thousands of units. And for the robotaxi and for the trucking on the highway, I agree with Xia here. And in China, in some certain scenarios, robotaxi can be demonstrated in certain areas of different cities, in big cities like Beijing, like Changsha, like Shenzhen. And also, we can also see some like buses for this kind, and shuttles. And in the western areas, in the United States, and the long way, the highway driving is a much higher of requirement for the drivers. So for their best of benefit, the highway speed is going to be commercializing even faster, I think. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll be honest, I'm not sure about the taxi segments. I do have some family members in the trucking industry itself, and we've been seeing already, I think it was Volvo who was running the program combined riding to limit the, air pressures on the trucks, reduce the fuel consumptions, and it is a very successful program. In Germany, they've been running these convoy systems for a while now, for I think maybe 9 years. My uncle is actually taking a part in this program as well, working very closely with Volvo, and it is something that I personally really see taking off. I mean, as you guys mentioned, as I've mentioned a little bit earlier, what if, right? I mean, highway itself is a very, what do you call it? It's a very straightforward operating environment. However, for a driver itself, for the truck driver, it's a very, very stressful because he has to stay focused. The roads are often very straight, linear. They're very boring, and if you think about this, it's one of the hardest things for a driver to do, and that is sit in a chair, stare straight at a plain road. It's the hardest thing you can do. It's like your teacher tells you sit for 90 minutes in the class looking at the blackboard. After 45, you kind of, let's say, getting a little bit headache. So I really, truly actually see this thing entering, potentially that segment entering first. It's really what I think it needs. It will improve the system, it will improve the delivery times, it will improve the quality of the delivery as well. The taxi segment itself, I think in Dubai nowadays, there's this little shuttle taxi, like 4 or 5 people kind of thing. They're running the system over there. And it's been already fairly successful. But the thing I think it's successful is because the environment around it, as you mentioned, the environment around it is being prepared. It's a small segments where it's prepared by the local government and thing. It's prepared towards the automation itself. I don't think you can run that everywhere. I think you have to run it where both the industry demands it, the industry is hungry for it, as well as where the environment is already matured enough as well to actually enter this thing. It cannot be a Wild West, I suppose. Yeah.
And my question is for you
Sure.
as well. What do you think about automating like delivery robots and shuttles and even your motorcycles in China?
I'm actually looking forward to it. Well, not maybe automatic motorcycles. That's a little bit different. I personally would not sit on an automated motorcycle that is doing 180 on a highway. No. When it comes to the deliveries, I do see, let's say, automation, and I look forward to it. I'm a person who believes in what you call a cyberpunk city. So I grew up on the stories of sci-fi. I grew up on the stories of the 2020 generation of this, what city of 2020 is supposed to be like, flying cars and stuff like this. I'm a little disappointed it's taking us so long to get there, personally. I'm truly looking forward. I think Alibaba or Tencent has been trying to take as well some effects with the, what you call it, some automated delivery systems, which I personally try to wait to see when it arrives at my home.
Let's see. My question is for Mr. Xia. Like as investors like you, what kind of autonomous vehicles related startup you think would worth investing? And what kind of team you think can go for?
I actually talked about this previously. I think it's for us early stage investors, I would like to focus on the technology side. I mean, those kind of hardware, sensors, and also the software, etc. I mean, only by doing this, we can build up a capable hardware platform for the autonomous driving. So at this stage, I'm more focused on the technology side, mostly hardware side. And in the future, maybe we will see what kind of operation company can play a big role in this kind of new ecosystem. But at this stage, we are focusing on some specific technology, like LiDAR and maybe some other kind of sensors that we are not seeing now. So we are pretty much focused on that, and also some chipsets for the smart driving, for the autonomous driving in China. The MCUs, the AI chips for autonomous driving. We are seeing a lot of startups doing in this area, and we actually have already invested in several of them. So that's what we are working on. Thanks.
And my question for Mr. Shi is about LiDAR is pretty expensive, as you mentioned. So how do you balance the resolution, cost, and ability to scale up manufacturing? And what's your solutions?
Yes, in previous demonstrations of autonomous vehicle, for example, like Waymo and for example, like Pony and Baidu, the LiDAR sensor unit price can go up to like 80K US dollar per unit, 80K for the 64 line from Velodyne. That's very expensive, even more expensive than the car itself. So in this way, this one is never going to be mass deployed in the vehicles in the future. And so on my side, there is not going to be some kind of balance or compromise on the performance and with this kind of technology, because this is very expensive. The throughput, the assembly time is very high, and throughput is never going to be enough to support this kind of hundreds of millions of units per year. And meanwhile, the reliability of the mechanical spinning LiDAR from the Velodyne is not good enough for the autonomous vehicle. In the OEMs, they require like 5 years of lifetime or even 10 years of lifetime. And right now, currently, they only have 1 year. 1 year of lifetime for those LiDAR sensors. And I don't see there is kind of balance between this kind of technology. The only thing to do is to innovate, to deliver some kind of LiDAR with a new technology. So this comes only with the solid-state LiDAR, with the silicon-based and the semiconductor-based technology. So in this way, we can improve the performance and improve the reliability, even with a lower cost. So that's something that we do. That's something that we do for the last several years. And so currently we are working on a MEMS LiDAR, MEMS-based LiDAR that can providing hundreds of equivalent lines and the longer distance and automotive grade reliability with a mass production cost of only a few $100s. So this is what we do. And in the future, we are working on the fully integrated silicon-based photonic integration circuits that providing even smaller and more cost-effective LiDAR units. That's targeting $100.
Thank you. My last question would be like, what's your, in your vision, what's the future of the mobility ecosystem in China, and what's your role therein? You already said your role, supplier.
I think, yeah, we 100% believe that there is going to be a very bright future for the autonomous driving and all the suppliers in this supply chain. And what we are aiming to do is to be some kind of infrastructure LiDAR sensor unit for this whole autonomous driving vehicles. So we are looking forward to see that every driving vehicles will have our LiDAR unit as a standard sensor part in the autonomous driving vehicles.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Xia, please.
Yeah. The same question?
Yes, same question. Future.
Yeah, okay. I'm actually a true believer of autonomous driving. So in the next several years, I'm pretty much still focusing on finding the opportunities in this ecosystem, the startups in the early stage, and with ambition and with the technology advantages. So I'm going to make more investments in this area, and hoping that we can contribute a little bit to the future of the smart driving. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Kwok.
On our end, the future is to deliver actually a consumer price conscious product. There's all the EVs popping up on the market. They're smart and other things, but when it comes to motorcycling, for example, EV motorcycling, it's a very expensive sport. So for example, Harley Davidson released their electric vehicle. Its starting price is $36,000 and only starts from there if you want actually nice suspension and things like this. It's a very expensive, very not consumer kind of ready toy. I would say that at the moment that's a toy. Evoque, as well, has been focusing very, very hard on how to reduce the costs without compromising of the quality and the rider's ability and safety, and deliver the next series of L3 classification, which is what you call low power classification vehicles onto the road, but at the same time make sure they're ready for an average Joe, an average person to be able to purchase and enjoy them. All these autonomous and all the other things will pick up with it if there's enough vehicles, and they're price sensitive as well to an average person an average person can afford them, I would say. And that's what we're going to be growing towards. We got the first ones, we're going to be releasing the next 2 models soon. You know, some of them is going to be more expensive, some of them less, but the idea is to make sure they compete on the gas level, and potentially with time they can go below gas level, or at least the value they offer is better than the gas vehicles.
Okay, thank you. So I finished my question. Here is our Q&A sessions. Is there any questions for our guest speakers?
This is for you, Sebastian. So I'm a huge fan of EV motorcycles. I think there's a lot of potential for them globally. So what do you think? Because right now it seems like there's no actual, the laws or regulations aren't caught up with what EV can be. I think the mentality by the policymakers is still that EVs are like little scooters or little, razor scooters that people push around and get from A to B, not an actual, bike like the Livewire or like, a regular motorcycle. So what do you see as the biggest obstacle in that, and what role would Evoque play, for example, on setting these regulations?
That's a very good question, and I would say the major one is marketing laws. The major one is marketing laws, because very few people really understand EV in nature in terms of batteries. So let me give you guys an idea. When you're looking at this bottle, think about this as a power inside the battery. Now, what people don't understand is how the lithium batteries work, and that is you can never deplete that to zero, because if you do it, they're dead, even brand new ones. You can never reach the top, because it will blow up. What you can play around with is 80% in the middle. However, the marketing laws don't allow, not so much don't allow, they don't restrict companies to fool their customers from how much actually their power there is and what their ranges, speeds, discharge, and other things are. And I think Evoque has been playing a very big role, because from a very early days, even though it impacted my growth and reduced, let's say, the amount I'm selling, but what we did is we've been always honest. We've always explained exactly what it is, what is available there, what people can achieve and what people can get. And with that in mind, our customers just keep referring. I'll be frank with you, 99% of my sales are just from referrals. People just pass the keys to another person, and the other person just asks later on to purchase the vehicle because they like it and they know exactly what they're getting, rather than over promises and under deliveries. That's a big one. Outside of that is understanding of what you call it, what can computer do for electric. So let's say you take 11 kilowatt motor. With few tweaks in the software, you can change that motor from being, let's say, 10, 20 horsepower vehicle into 35 horsepower vehicle, which is a very different classification of power and speed and accelerations. And there is no control of that, neither here, neither in Europe, anywhere. And there's already big debates happening in Europe, in European Union, first of all, where vehicles cannot have switching modes. They have to offer particular power, or they have to be registered at the peak performance. And that's already happening there, and we are very happy. Quite a few actually companies here in China, they begin to having the first impacts and feeling difficulties that they have to adjust towards that. And yeah, the last, I would say the major one would be just language. First of all, in China, just simple word, 电动车, which means scooter, and that's a mindset. People still don't understand There's an actual highway motorcycle, and it's not the unknown show anymore. It's a highway bike. I had the surprises with that one when somebody says, "Oh, this is an extra scooter." I was like, "Okay, you get in your car, I'll get on this one." And then suddenly he's driving on the highway, and he sees me passing at insane speed next to him, and I was like, "So is that a scooter?" Yeah. So there's those small things. I mean, from the big issue to the small issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, another question for Mr. Sebastian. I'm a little curious about your customer. Are they mainly EV lovers or motor lovers? They are not mutually exclusive, but from my understanding, I think many motor lovers, they are fascinated about the combustion engines. But you are powering the car with the batteries, so I was wondering.
It's a very good question, and I looked at this thing. We sit down together with marketing and sales team the other day, and I asked them to combine the data for maybe the last 3 years of sales, and it's really 50-50. Because let me give you an idea. I've got a couple of the gentlemen here in Beijing who ride 1200cc motorcycles on weekends. They're actual, they're actually in MotoGP, and they ride those vehicles. However, they themselves would say they would never ride a gas bike inside the city because of the complexity of driving. And they purchase my bike because it feels that, let's say, comfort of riding and comfort of mind. When you're in your car, when you're in your car and you sit in the Beijing traffic, can you imagine driving it with manual gearbox? It's really, really tiresome. If you ever drive a manual gearbox, you already know how hard that is, just riding normally. But now imagine being in the Beijing traffic and you're doing that forward, stop, neutral, forward, stop, neutral. You're doing that. By the time you get to work, you don't need to go to the gym for your left shoulder, your right shoulder, you really don't. Motorcycles are that. They're manual-driven vehicles. Doesn't matter how advanced we are, the gas ones, they're still manual-driven vehicles. Only here you have the brake here, clutch over here, the gear over there, brake, another brake over there. So what you're doing in the traffic condition is this. Now, for a new rider, that can be very distracting because you have to drop the gears, you have to drop the things, you have to hit the clutch before you can hit the brakes. Those are seconds. Those are microseconds which counts between you stopping the vehicle or you crashing into the vehicle in front of you. Now, for me, the reason I even, when we built the first bike and we actually put gears on it, because there are options for electric motors to be put gears, like Harley's doing, other companies. And my first thing was, no more gears. This is the next generation. This is the thing that causes the young people having accidents. If I provide a vehicle, I want to provide a vehicle for that next generation who actually can enjoy it and provide safety as well. And what I did, and honestly, I targeted all the new riders. I didn't even care about the old riders. I'm like, they can die with Harley down over there as they keep going, that old generations. But then what I realized is all of those older guys suddenly start buying my bikes. And they're like, I want a replacement for my Monday to Friday workhorse. And this is what fills that niche. I had new riders who are purchasing it because they think it's easier to ride, it's more convenient, they can practice this vehicle for few years before they can actually get on the road. Now, the very most interesting thing that happened a month ago, Evoque has been officially put on the list of LEMs, which means the government first must have approved vehicle for New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand, Australia, and soon UK will demand that this is the first vehicle, the first motorcycle that you must own, that you must ride, that you must practice with before you can get on a bigger vehicle. And this is like a list of vehicles that are basically for new riders. And I was surprised. I got a couple of guys, Harley guys in the US and other places, and they're like, when I'm going downtown LA, I'm taking Evoque. I give my Harley for a weekend, so I'm going with my guys, but I'm riding my bike to work in the traffic, and I want something that gives me power, but at the same time, it's easy to ride.
A small question from Mr. Xia. As for the transportation and mobility area, what's the most potential chances for you, robotaxi? What we should pay attention to?
Potential trends, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For the mobility area, I think there's a lot to do because you see in a big city like Beijing, we still have trouble, going to work in the morning, and I think we can do a lot of things to solve those kind of problems like we did with mobile, and I think maybe it's not necessarily the autonomous car or bicycle or something like that. Maybe it's kind of a new public infrastructure, maybe. So I don't know, but we have been very actively looking for all kinds of solutions that can be helpful, can contribute to the traffic in large cities, and I don't know what kind of startups can be successful, but I'm pretty sure that there will be new things in the near future that will be very valuable for our daily life. We are now actually focusing on the technology side. So not those kind of business model innovations, but the technology side, the improvement of all kinds of hardwares, softwares, etc., to either cut the cost or improve the reliability. So that's what we are looking for.
So I have one more question for Mr. Shituo. Is that from the LiDAR suppliers aspect or from any other sensors suppliers side? I don't know how you differentiate yourself and what's the key criteria in your area, like to helping yourself be the outstanding one among all the competitors in China, even more competitors all over the world. So how do you differentiate? How do you convince your next round investor? This is the question I want to ask to Shituo, and also a question for Xiajing. Xiajing is that but you mentioned you shared some very interesting story about how you invest in mobile, and you also shared that you focus on technologies. You want to invest those technology-driven companies in auto sector, like the AI chip companies, as well as some algorithm companies. So, what's your expectation in next few years? Whether you can have another great story, just like mobile, just like Horizon Robotics, such companies in the next few years, which area or which vertical, which specific vertical you have the high expectation for? Yeah, so 2 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that. For the LiDAR, so what we can touch the investors' points of their to make the decision to invest in us is whether we can deliver something that the market doesn't. So that's the only thing that every investor wants to put their money in and put their risks in. So currently, right now, what we can provide is automotive grade reliability with mechanical shock, vibration from 10 Hz to 1000 Hz, temperature cycling from -40 degree to 85 degree. All those measurements readouts are put in front of them, and they can make this kind of decision. And so far as we know, not all even none of these competitors in the market can deliver this kind of test reports or qualification reports to assure that, to the customers, this is what we can do now, and if you invest in us, if you cooperate with us, this is something that you don't need to bother in the future, because what LiDAR misses most in country right now is the reliability, not the cost, not the performance. Performance is very good for the mechanical spinning. Cost is higher, but that can be done with finessing of the assembly, with integration, with mass production deployment. But only the reliability is a critical thing that's missing in almost every LiDAR vendors. So this is what we differentiate with other competitors in the market.
Okay. I think in the near future, I don't expect there's a big thing like Didi or Uber in the mobility or transportation area. What I expect is those kind of startups that continuously invest in the R&D and to improve their products, to build up a very sophisticated, very turnkey solution for the customers. By customers, I mean mostly the OEMs. I still think that OEMs would be very important in the future ecosystem. So I would suggest that the startups to improve their solutions and to win their customers, I mean the OEMs. And by doing this, I think they can step by step build up the smart driving system, starting with the ADAS, advanced assistant system for the drivers. And maybe in the future there can be a very reliable level 4 or level 5 autonomous driving system. So I kind of very agree with the Tesla about how to do the autonomous driving. I mean, start with the assisting system, but by doing that, collecting data, improve the technology, and in the future they can be in a better place, better position to provide the autonomous driving system to the customer, to mass customers. So that's what we are going to see, I think, in the future.
I think we are finished. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give a applause. Yep.